The diner's neon sign flickered against the Chicago skyline, casting intermittent shadows across West Roosevelt Road. Elena Vasquez had exactly 47 minutes left on her double shift before she had to sprint 6 blocks to her second job at the cocktail bar on South State Street. Her feet ached in the cheap canvas shoes she'd bought at a discount store 3 weeks ago, already wearing through at the heels. She refilled coffee cups on autopilot, her mind calculating the math that never seemed to add up. Tonight's tips: $83. Tomorrow's payment due: $200. The gap between those numbers was a chasm she'd been trying to bridge for 18 months, and she was losing ground with every passing week. "More coffee, hun?" she asked the businessman in booth 7, forcing her customer service smile into place. He waved her off without looking up from his phone. Elena moved to the next table where a young couple sat sharing a piece of pie, laughing about something only they understood. She felt a pang of something she couldn't quite name. Not jealousy exactly, but a bone-deep exhaustion at the memory of ever being that carefree. The door chimed. Elena glanced up reflexively, years of waitressing having trained her to assess new customers instantly. This one made her pause mid-pour. He walked in alone, which was the first unusual thing. Men who looked like him. Expensive charcoal suit, Italian leather shoes that probably cost more than her monthly rent, dark hair styled with the kind of precision that suggested a personal barber. Didn't come to Sal's diner at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. They especially didn't come alone. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The second unusual thing was the way he moved. There was a predatory grace to his stride, a controlled awareness that reminded Elena of the men she'd learned to avoid in certain neighborhoods. He scanned the room with dark eyes that missed nothing, cataloging exits and occupants with the efficiency of someone trained to assess threats. The third unusual thing was that when those eyes landed on her, they stopped. Elena felt the weight of his attention like a physical touch. She looked away quickly, grabbing a menu from the hostess stand even though Carla, the actual hostess, was busy in the back. "Sit anywhere you'd like," Elena said, approaching him with professional neutrality. "Kitchen's open for another hour." "Counter's fine." His voice was deep, textured with the faintest trace of an accent that suggested Italian heritage tempered by Chicago roots. He chose a stool that gave him a clear view of both the entrance and the back exit. Of course he did. Elena set down the menu and filled a water glass without being asked. "I'll give you a minute to look over." "Espresso," he said. "If the machine works." "It works." She kept her tone even. "Anything to eat?" "No." She started to turn away, but his next words stopped her. "You're working another shift after this one." It wasn't a question. Elena's guard went up instantly. She turned back, meeting his gaze directly for the first time. Up close, his face was all sharp angles and masculine beauty. High cheekbones, a strong jaw shadowed with precisely maintained stubble, a small scar cutting through his left eyebrow that somehow made him more attractive rather than less. "That's not really your concern," she said carefully. "You've been limping since you walked over here. Your shoes are worn through. And you checked your phone 3 times in the last 5 minutes, each time with the expression of someone calculating whether they can afford something they desperately need." Elena's blood ran cold. This wasn't casual observation. This was surveillance-level attention to detail. "Are you a cop?" she asked bluntly. Something that might have been amusement flickered in his dark eyes. "No." "Then I'll get your espresso." She walked away before he could respond, her heart hammering against her ribs. In the kitchen, she leaned against the stainless steel counter and took 3 deep breaths. Her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. She pulled it out with shaking hands. Another text from the same unknown number that had been haunting her for 6 weeks. "Payment Friday. Full amount or we proceed to next phase. You know what that means. Elena's throat tightened. She knew exactly what it meant. They'd shown her pictures. Surveillance photos of her walking to work, shopping for groceries, entering her apartment building. The message was clear. We can reach you whenever we want. Order up, Elena, Sal called from the kitchen window. She shoved the phone back in her pocket and grabbed the espresso she'd just pulled. Her hands were steadier now. She'd had 18 months of practice hiding fear behind a smile. When she set the small cup in front of the stranger, he was watching her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Thank you," he said. Then, after a pause, "I'm Dante." Elena picked up the coffee pot, ready to move to other customers. "Enjoy your coffee, Dante." "I didn't ask your name." "I know." She walked away. For the next 30 minutes, she felt his attention on her like a weight she couldn't shake. He sipped his espresso slowly, occasionally typing something on his phone, but mostly just watching. Not in a creepy way exactly, but with that same analytical focus he'd used when he first walked in. When Elena brought him his check, $4 for the espresso, he pulled out a wallet and extracted a $100 bill. "I don't have change for that," Elena said automatically. "I don't need change." He stood, buttoning his suit jacket with one hand. "But I do need to talk to you. 5 minutes of your time." "I'm working." "Your shift ends in 12 minutes. I'll wait." "I have somewhere else to be." "Your second job, I know." He held out a business card. Elena didn't take it, so he set it on the counter beside the $100 bill. 5 minutes, Elena, that's all I'm asking." She stiffened. "I didn't tell you my name." "It's on your name tag." He gestured to the plastic rectangle pinned to her uniform. Of course it was. Elena felt foolish for the spike of panic. "I don't know what you want," she said carefully, "but I'm not interested. You haven't heard what I'm offering yet." "Doesn't matter. The answer is no." Dante studied her for a long moment. Then he picked up the business card and tucked it into the pocket of her apron before she could protest. "When you change your mind," he said quietly, "call that number. Day or night. Someone will answer." "I won't change my mind." "Yes, you will." There was no arrogance in his voice, just certainty. Because whatever situation you're in, whatever reason you're working yourself to exhaustion for, it's getting worse, not better. And you're running out of time. Elena's chest constricted. How could he possibly know that? "I don't need help from strangers," she said. "Everyone needs help eventually. The question is whether you ask for it before you drown or after." He walked toward the door, then paused and looked back. "The 100 is yours, by the way. Not payment for anything except the coffee. Consider it a tip for excellent service." His dark eyes held hers. "You deserve better than this, Elena Vasquez. When you're ready to accept that, make the call." He left before she could respond. Elena stood frozen at the counter, staring at the $100 bill and feeling like the world had just tilted off its axis. Carla appeared at her elbow. "Girl? Who was that?" "I have no idea," Elena whispered. But that was a lie. She didn't know his last name or what he did for a living or why he'd walked into this diner tonight. But she knew what he was. She'd grown up in Chicago, had seen enough of the city's underbelly to recognize danger when it wore an expensive suit. Dante was connected, and connected men were exactly the kind of trouble Elena couldn't afford. She pocketed the $100. She needed it too badly to refuse, and pulled out the business card. No name, no company. Just a phone number embossed in simple black text on heavy cardstock. Elena shoved it to the bottom of her apron pocket and tried to forget about dark eyes and dangerous offers. She lasted 3 days. The cocktail bar on South State Street catered to a different clientele than Sal's diner. Here, the lighting was low and deliberately atmospheric. The drinks cost $18 minimum, and the customers were young professionals who'd come straight from their loop offices to unwind. Elena had learned to navigate this world with the same efficiency she brought to everything else. She mixed drinks with practiced speed, remembered regulars' orders, deflected unwanted advances with polite firmness, and collected tips that were substantially better than the diners but still nowhere near enough. It was Friday night, which meant the bar was packed. It also meant Elena's deadline had arrived. She'd checked her bank account during her break. After paying rent, utilities, and this week's groceries, she had $147 left. The payment due was $500. She was $353 short. Her phone had been buzzing all evening with increasingly aggressive messages. She'd stopped looking after the third one, which had included another surveillance photo, this time of her apartment building's entrance with a timestamp from that morning. "Elena, you okay?" Marco, the head bartender, touched her shoulder. "You've been staring at that martini for 30 seconds. She blinked, realizing she'd frozen mid-pour. "Sorry, long week." "Tell me about it." He moved on to help another customer. Elena finished the martini with shaking hands and delivered it to the couple at table 7. When she returned to the bar, a familiar figure was sitting on the end stool. Dante. He wore a different suit tonight. Midnight blue that probably cost more than she made in a month. And he was flanked by 2 men who screamed, "Security," despite their attempts to blend in. They positioned themselves at nearby tables, casual, but watchful. Elena's stomach dropped. She considered pretending she hadn't seen him, but his eyes were already locked on hers. She walked over with her professional smile firmly in place. "What can I get you?" "McAllen 18, neat. Anything else?" 5 minutes of conversation when you have a break. I told you I'm not interested. And I told you that you'd change your mind." He leaned forward slightly. "How much are you short tonight, Elena?" Her blood turned to ice. "Excuse me?" "The payment that's due. The one you've been checking your phone about every 10 minutes. How much do you still need?" Elena's hands curled into fists at her sides. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." His voice was quiet but carried an edge of steel. "Someone has leverage over you. Someone dangerous enough that you're terrified but not dangerous enough to go to the police, which tells me it's either something illegal or something that would hurt someone you care about if exposed." "You need to leave," Elena said, her voice shaking despite her attempt at firmness. $353, Dante continued as if she hadn't spoken. "That's what you're short. I can have cash delivered to you in 20 minutes. No strings, no obligations. Consider it a loan. I don't take loans from strangers. Then consider it a gift. I don't take gifts either." Dante's jaw tightened slightly, the first crack in his controlled demeanor. "Why not?" "Because gifts from men like you always come with strings even when you say they don't." "Men like me," he repeated softly. There was something dangerous in his tone now. "What kind of man do you think I am? Elena?" She met his gaze directly. "The kind who doesn't take no for an answer. The kind who tracks people's financial situations without their permission. The kind who—" Her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. Elena's sentence died. She pulled out the phone with numb fingers. 3 new photos. The first showed the exterior of the bar where she currently stood. The second showed her apartment building. The third showed a little girl, maybe 7 years old, walking out of an elementary school with a backpack covered in unicorn stickers. Elena's vision tunneled. The noise of the bar faded to white static. Her hands started shaking so badly she nearly dropped the phone. "Elena!" Dante's voice cut through the panic. He was standing now, his hand reaching toward her. "What is it?" She couldn't answer, couldn't breathe. The message beneath the photos was succinct. "Midnight deadline, deliver or we visit Madison Elementary tomorrow." Madison Elementary. Sophia's school. Elena's 7-year-old sister, the one person in the world she would die to protect. I need to. Elena backed away from the bar, her apron strings catching on the register. I have to go. I have to. Marco! She called toward the head bartender, her voice high and strained. I'm sick. I need to leave early. Elena. We're slammed. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She was already untying her apron, her fingers fumbling with the knots. Dante was around the bar before she realized he'd moved. His hand closed gently around her wrist, not restraining, but steadying. Stop, he said quietly. Breathe. Tell me what's happening. Let go of me. She tried to pull away, but his grip was firm. Not until you tell me who sent those photos. How do you? Your face. I've seen that expression before. Terror combined with protective rage. Someone threatened a child. His dark eyes bored into hers. Who? Elena's defenses crumbled. The 18 months of carrying this weight alone, of working herself to exhaustion, of watching every shadow, it all crashed down at once. My sister, she whispered. They're threatening my sister. Dante's expression went absolutely cold. It wasn't anger exactly, but something more controlled and infinitely more frightening. Come with me, he said, right now. I can't. You can, and you will. He released her wrist but stayed close. You have until midnight to make a payment you can't afford to people who've just threatened a 7-year-old child. You have two choices. You can try to handle this alone and fail, or you can accept my help and succeed. Choose. Elena looked at him. Really looked at him. She saw danger, yes, but she also saw absolute certainty. This was a man who was accustomed to winning, to imposing his will on the world through sheer force of personality and resources she couldn't begin to imagine. Why? She asked desperately. Why do you care? You don't know me. You don't know Sophia. Why would you help? Something shifted in Dante's expression. For just a moment, the controlled mask slipped, and Elena saw something raw beneath it. Because 18 months ago, someone I cared about needed help, and was too proud to ask for it, he said quietly. By the time I found out, it was too late to save her. I won't make that mistake twice. The words hung in the air between them, weighted with grief and regret. Elena's phone buzzed again. Another message. 2 hours, 47 minutes. Clock is ticking. She looked down at the screen, then back up at Dante. If I say yes, she said slowly, what does that mean? What do you want from me? Right now, I want you to trust me long enough to keep your sister safe. After that, we'll talk. He pulled out his phone. But first, tell me where Sophia is right now. With my neighbor, Mrs. Chen. She watches her when I work nights. Address. Elena rattled it off. Dante was already texting, his thumbs moving across the screen with rapid efficiency. I'm sending 2 of my people to sit on your apartment building, he said, without looking up. They're professionals. They won't be visible, but anyone who tries to approach Sophia will be intercepted. Understood? You can just do that? Yes. He finished texting and looked at her. Now, who exactly are you paying, and what do they have on you? Elena hesitated. Speaking it aloud made it real, made it impossible to take back. But Sophia's face flashed through her mind, her gap-toothed smile, her obsession with unicorns, the way she still reached for Elena's hand when they crossed streets. His name is Vincent Kozlov, Elena said. He runs a loan operation out of the South Side. 18 months ago, my father borrowed $20,000 from him to cover medical bills when my mother got sick. Dad promised he'd pay it back when he sold the house, but he died before he could. The debt transferred to me. Your father had no right to put that debt on you, Dante said flatly. That's not how legal loans work. It wasn't a legal loan. Elena's voice was hollow. And Kozlov doesn't care about legal technicalities. He said the debt was family debt, and as the oldest child, I inherited it. $20,000 at 30% interest compounded monthly. I've been paying for 18 months and I still owe more than when I started. Dante's expression was thunderous. How much have you paid so far? 32,000. And how much do they say you still owe? 47,000. Jesus Christ. Dante ran a hand through his hair, the first sign of agitation she'd seen from him. You've paid them 12,000 more than the original loan and they're claiming you owe more than double. This isn't a loan, Elena. This is indentured servitude. I know what it is. Her voice cracked. But I don't have a choice. If I stop paying, they go after Sophia. I'm all she has. Our parents are dead. We have no other family. And if child services gets involved, they won't. Dante's voice was absolute. Not tonight, not ever. You have my word. Why should I trust your word? Because unlike Vincent Kozlov, when I make a promise, I keep it. He pulled out his wallet and extracted a thick stack of bills. How much is tonight's payment? 500, but I can't. He counted out $500 bills and pressed them into her hand. Pay him. Tonight. On time. But tell him this is the last payment you'll ever make. Elena stared at the money. It felt surreal, like she'd stepped into someone else's life. He'll never accept that. He'll say I'm breaching the contract. There is no contract, there's extortion. And after tonight, it ends. Dante leaned closer, his voice dropping to a tone that made Elena's spine straighten. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to make tonight's payment through whatever method you normally use. Tomorrow morning, you're going to meet me at this address. He pulled out another business card, this one with an actual address printed on it. Michigan Avenue, one of the most expensive areas in Chicago. We're going to sit down like civilized people, and you're going to tell me everything about Kozlov's operation. Names, locations, payment methods, how many other people he's squeezing, everything you know. And then what? And then I'm going to remove him from your life permanently. The way he said, remove, made Elena's blood run cold and hot simultaneously. This was what she'd been afraid of from the moment Dante walked into the diner. He wasn't offering help. He was offering war. I can't be responsible for someone getting hurt, she said. You won't be. This is between Kozlov and me. You're just the catalyst. Dante's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and nodded. My people are in position at your building. Sophia is secure. No one's getting near her tonight. Elena felt tears prick her eyes for the first time since this nightmare began. Someone was protecting Sophia. Someone with resources and power was standing between her baby sister and the monsters. Why are you doing this? She whispered again. Dante looked at her for a long moment. Because you rejected my offer 3 times. Most people would have jumped at the money, no questions asked. But you kept saying no, even when you were desperate. That kind of integrity is rare. It deserves protection. I still don't understand what you want from me. Tomorrow. We'll discuss it tomorrow. He stepped back, giving her space. For tonight, make the payment. Go home. Hug your sister. Sleep knowing she's safe. That's all you need to worry about. Elena clutched the $500 in her hand. It felt like a lifeline and a trap all at once. What if I don't show up tomorrow? She asked. Dante's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. You will. Because you're smart enough to know that you can't fight Kozlov alone, and because you want to know what I'm really offering. Which is? Freedom, he said, simply. Real freedom, not just from Kozlov, but from all of this. He gestured to encompass the bar, her uniform, the exhaustion etched into every line of her body. A life where you don't have to work 3 jobs and still come up short, where your sister is safe, where you can breathe without calculating whether you can afford the air. It sounded like a fairy tale. It sounded impossible. It sounded exactly like what Elena had been desperately craving for 18 months. 10 a.m., Dante said. Don't be late. He walked out of the bar with his security detail flanking him, leaving Elena standing behind the counter with $500 in cash and a future that suddenly looked nothing like the path she'd been trudging. Marco appeared at her elbow. You okay? Who is that guy? Elena slowly folded the bills and tucked them into her pocket. I honestly have no idea. But that was another lie. She knew exactly what Dante Moretti was. What she didn't know yet was whether he was her salvation or her damnation. She'd find out tomorrow. Elena made the payment at 11:45 p.m. through the usual method, a dead drop at a convenience store on the south side where she left cash in a hollowed-out energy drink can on the bottom shelf. By midnight, she received the confirmation text, "Received. See you next Friday." Except there wouldn't be a next Friday, not if Dante Moretti kept his word. She took the bus back to her apartment building in Pilsen, a neighborhood that had once been working class but was now caught in the awkward transition of gentrification. Her building was one of the holdouts, a 3-story walk-up with peeling paint and a perpetually broken intercom. As Elena approached, she noticed them immediately. 2 people who didn't belong. A woman sitting in a parked sedan across the street, ostensibly reading a book, but with sightlines that covered the entire front entrance. A man at the corner bodega, buying cigarettes he didn't smoke, positioned where he could see both the alley entrance and the main door. Dante's people. Elena felt a strange mixture of relief and unease. She'd spent 18 months hypervigilant, always looking over her shoulder, and now suddenly she had protection. Real protection. The kind that came with trained professionals and resources she couldn't fathom. She climbed the 3 flights to her apartment, her key already out. The door opened before she could use it. Mrs. Chen stood in the doorway, her weathered face creased with concern. You're late. I was worried. I'm sorry, Mrs. Chen. Work ran over. Elena stepped inside, immediately scanning for Sophia. Her sister was asleep on the couch, curled up under a blanket covered in stars. A unicorn coloring book lay open on the floor beside her, crayons scattered like fallen soldiers. Elena's chest loosened. Safe. Sophia was safe. She had dinner, did her homework, and insisted on waiting up for you, Mrs. Chen said in her accented English. She lasted until 9:30. Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you. You work too hard, Elena. The older woman gathered her knitting supplies. A young woman like you should be out living, not killing herself for pennies. If only she knew. After Mrs. Chen left, Elena locked the door. Deadbolt, chain, and the additional sliding lock she'd installed 6 months ago. She checked the windows, pulling the curtains tight. Then she scooped Sophia into her arms, marveling at how her baby sister was getting too big for this, nearly 7 years old and all gangly limbs. Sophia stirred. Lena? Hey, princess? Let's get you to bed. Did you bring me anything? Elena's heart clenched. Sophia always asked this, hopeful for a treat, a small toy, anything. And Elena almost never had anything to give beyond her presence. I brought myself, Elena said, carrying her to the bedroom they shared. Is that enough? Sophia wrapped her thin arms around Elena's neck. That's the best thing. Elena tucked Sophia into the twin bed they'd bought at Goodwill, pulling the unicorn comforter up to her chin. I love you, baby, more than anything in the world. Love you too. Sophia's eyes were already closing. Will you sing? Elena sang the lullaby their mother used to sing, her voice cracking on certain notes. When Sophia's breathing evened out into sleep, Elena finally allowed herself to collapse. She sat on the floor beside the bed, her back against the wall, and pulled out the business card Dante had given her. The address on Michigan Avenue. 10 a.m. tomorrow. She should be terrified. Should be planning how to refuse whatever devil's bargain he was offering. But all she could think about was the surveillance photo of Sophia's school, the countdown to midnight, the crushing weight of the debt that had been slowly killing her for 18 months, and Dante's words, freedom, real freedom. Elena set her alarm for 7 a.m. and closed her eyes, knowing she wouldn't sleep much. Outside, the woman in the sedan and the man at the bodega kept watch through the night. The address on Michigan Avenue belonged to a sleek high-rise that looked like it housed either very expensive condos or very exclusive offices. Probably both. Elena stood on the sidewalk at 9:55 a.m., feeling acutely out of place in her best outfit. Black slacks from Target and a cream blouse she'd bought 3 years ago when she still thought she might need business casual clothes. Around her, people in designer suits and luxury watches hurried past, their shoes clicking against the pavement with the confidence of people who'd never worried about rent. She checked the address 3 times before finally pushing through the gleaming glass doors. The lobby was all marble and modern art. A security desk dominated the center, manned by 2 guards who looked more like Secret Service than building security. "Can I help you?" one asked, professional but assessing. "I'm here to see—" Elena realized she didn't know Dante's last name. "I have a 10 a.m. appointment." "Name?" "Elena Vasquez." The guard checked his computer, then nodded. "Penthouse level. Elevator bank to your right. You'll need this." He handed her a key card. "It's programmed for one-time access." The elevator was the kind with a mirror on 3 sides, forcing Elena to confront her reflection from multiple angles. She looked tired. Her hair, usually pulled back in a practical ponytail for work, hung loose around her shoulders. She'd tried to cover the dark circles under her eyes with drugstore concealer, but exhaustion had a way of showing through. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse that made Elena forget how to breathe. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Chicago, the lake stretching to the horizon, the skyline glittering in the morning sun. The space was open concept, decorated in masculine tones of gray, black, and deep burgundy. Everything screamed wealth, but it was understated wealth. No gaudy displays, just quality so high it didn't need to announce itself. Dante stood by the windows, hands in his pockets, wearing charcoal slacks and a black dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. He turned when the elevator doors opened. "You came," he said, something like satisfaction in his voice. "You didn't think I would?" "I hoped you would. Hope and certainty are different things." He gestured to a seating area, leather couches arranged around a glass coffee table. "Sit. Have you eaten?" "I'm not hungry." "That wasn't what I asked." He walked to the kitchen, a chef's dream of stainless steel and marble, and returned with a plate of fresh fruit, pastries, and what looked like homemade yogurt. "Eat while we talk." Elena wanted to refuse, but the spread looked too good, and she'd skipped breakfast to save money. She sat on the edge of the couch and took a strawberry. Dante settled into the chair across from her, close enough to talk, but far enough to not crowd her. His dark eyes tracked her movements with that same analytical attention that had unnerved her at the diner. "How's Sophia this morning?" he asked. "Fine, asking why there was a nice lady in a car outside our building." "Quick eyes. What did you tell her?" "That I didn't know what she was talking about." Elena met his gaze. "Your people are very visible for professionals." "They're visible because I wanted them to be. Anyone watching your building last night needed to know you're under protection now. It's a message. To Kozlov. To anyone who might consider you a target." Elena set down the strawberry. "Why are you doing this? And don't give me that line about someone you couldn't save 18 months ago. Nobody helps a stranger like this without expecting something in return." Dante leaned back, studying her. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, "You're right. I do expect something in return." Elena's stomach tightened. Here it was. The catch. "What?" "Your intelligence. Your attention to detail. Your loyalty. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I've been watching you, Elena, not just the last few days, for 3 weeks. Her blood ran cold. What? You work 67 hours a week across 2 jobs. You spend exactly 43 minutes on Sunday mornings at the library with Sophia, letting her check out books while you use the free computers to look for better paying positions. You haven't bought new clothes for yourself in 14 months, but Sophia has new sneakers every time her feet grow. You walk an extra 6 blocks to buy groceries at the discount store instead of the closer bodega. And every Friday at 11:45 p.m., you make a payment you can't afford to a man who's bleeding you dry. Elena couldn't breathe. The level of surveillance he was describing was, "That's stalking," she managed. "That's due diligence." No apology in his voice. "I don't make investments without research. And you, Elena Vasquez, are someone I want to invest in." Why? If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Because you have something I need: pattern recognition, the ability to see what others miss. Dante pulled out his phone, tapped something, and turned the screen toward her. Look at this. It was a spreadsheet. Columns of numbers, dates, transaction codes. At first glance, it looked like routine business records. But Elena's eyes, trained from years of balancing her own impossible budget, caught something. "The spacing is off," she said slowly, leaning closer. "Columns D and E. The intervals aren't consistent. Every seventh entry is offset, like someone's manually adjusting the data." Dante's expression shifted into something fierce and satisfied. "It took my forensic accountant 3 weeks to spot that pattern. You saw it in 30 seconds. What is it?" "Embezzlement. Someone in my organization is siphoning money through false expense reports. Small amounts, carefully hidden. They've stolen close to $2 million over 18 months. And I couldn't prove it because I couldn't see the pattern." He took the phone back. "But you saw it immediately." Elena's mind raced. "You want me to find whoever's stealing from you. I want you to do what you're already doing for Kozlov. Track money, see patterns, identify discrepancies. Except instead of scraping together $500 a week for a loan shark, you'll be working for me. Salary, $200,000 a year to start." Elena choked on air. "What?" $200,000, with full benefits, including health insurance that covers both you and Sophia. I'll also pay off your current debt to Kozlov in full. The original $20,000, not the inflated amount he claims you owe. That's... Elena couldn't process the numbers. It was more money than she'd made in her entire life combined. That's insane. That's market rate for someone with your skill set. I don't have a skill set, I'm a waitress. You're someone who can spot financial irregularities that trained accountants miss. You're someone who's been managing an impossible budget for 18 months and kept yourself and your sister alive. You're someone who walks 6 extra blocks to save $3 on groceries, which tells me you understand the value of money in ways most people never will. Dante stood, walking to the windows. I need someone I can trust, Elena. Someone who isn't already corrupted by proximity to power. Someone who knows what it means to be desperate and fights anyway. Elena's hands were shaking. What if I say no? Then I'll still pay off your debt to Kozlov. I'll still keep security on your building until I'm satisfied the threat is neutralized. You'll walk out of here free of obligation. He turned to face her. But you'll also walk away from the chance to change your life. And Sophia's life. Real schools instead of underfunded public ones, a safe neighborhood, college funds, a future that isn't measured in survival. It was everything Elena had dreamed about during the darkest moments of the last 18 months. Everything she'd told herself was impossible. There's a catch, she said, because there always was. You're not offering me a job. You're offering me a position in your organization, which means you're not a legitimate businessman. I'm both. Dante's voice was calm, factual. I own Moretti Logistics, a shipping and transportation company that employs 300 people and generates $50 million in annual revenue, completely legal, completely above board. I also have other interests that operate in gray areas. You're Mafia. I'm a businessman who understands that Chicago runs on relationships and leverage. Some of those relationships exist outside legal frameworks. He walked back toward her. But I don't deal drugs. I don't traffic people. I don't prey on the vulnerable. The people I do business with are players who know the rules. Unlike Kozlov, who squeezes desperate people for everything they have. That's supposed to make me feel better? No, it's supposed to give you context. Dante sat across from her again. If you work for me, you'll be analyzing legitimate business records. The embezzlement I need you to find? That's from Moretti Logistics. Legal company. Illegal theft. You won't be doing anything criminal, Elena. You'll be preventing crime. But I'll be working for someone who commits crimes. Yes. At least he was honest. Elena looked around the penthouse, the luxury, the view, the evidence of a life so far removed from her own it might as well be on another planet. She thought about Sophia, about the apartment with its broken heating and the landlord who kept threatening eviction, about working until her feet bled and still coming up short every month. What happens if I say yes and then want to leave? She asked. You can leave any time. I don't keep people who don't want to be here. The debt payoff is immediate and non-refundable regardless of how long you stay. Dante pulled out a contract, already printed and bound. It's all here. Employment terms, salary, benefits, termination clauses. Take it home. Read it. Have a lawyer review it if you want. I can't afford a lawyer. I'll provide one. Independent counsel, paid by me but representing your interests, not mine. Elena stared at the contract. Why would you do that? Because I want you to feel secure in this decision. If you're going to work for me, I need you focused on the job, not worried about hidden clauses. He set the contract on the table between them. This is a legitimate offer, Elena. I'm not trying to trap you. I'm trying to employ you. She didn't reach for the contract yet. What about Kozlov? What about him? You said you'd remove him from my life permanently. What does that mean? Dante's expression went cold. It means he won't bother you again. Will he be alive? Do you care? The question hung in the air. Elena thought about 18 months of fear. About surveillance photos of Sophia's school. About paying $32,000 and still owing more. About Vincent Kozlov's smile when he'd cornered her in an alley 6 months ago and suggested there were other ways she could pay off her debt. No, Elena said quietly. I don't care. Then don't ask questions you don't want answers to. Dante stood. Think about the offer. You have until Monday to decide. In the meantime, security stays on your building. Consider it part of the signing bonus. Elena grabbed the contract, weighing it in her hands. Can I ask you something? Yes. Who was she? The person you couldn't save 18 months ago. Pain flashed across Dante's face, raw and real. Her name was Isabel, my younger sister. She got involved with someone dangerous, borrowed money from the wrong people. She was too proud to tell me until it was too late. By the time I found out, they'd already... He stopped, jaw tight. They killed her to send me a message. She was 23 years old. Elena's throat constricted. I'm sorry. So am I. Every day. Dante walked to the elevator, pressing the call button for her. Don't let pride kill you, Elena, and don't let it orphan Sophia. Whatever you decide about the job, let me handle Kozlov. That's not negotiable. The elevator doors opened. Elena stepped inside, still clutching the contract. Dante? He looked up. Thank you. For last night. For keeping Sophia safe. Something softened in his expression. You don't have to thank me for doing what's right. The doors closed between them. Elena spent the weekend reading the contract 17 times. It was shockingly straightforward. No hidden clauses, no indentured servitude buried in legal jargon. Just a standard employment agreement with an absurdly generous salary. She didn't sleep much. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw two futures branching before her. In one, she said no, kept her integrity, kept her distance from Dante Moretti's dangerous world, worked her two jobs until something broke. Her body, her spirit, or worse. Sophia grew up in poverty, maybe made it to college on scholarships if she was lucky, maybe didn't. In the other future, she said yes, took the money, the security, the chance at something better. Worked for a man who operated outside the law, but promised her she wouldn't have to. Sophia got the childhood Elena never had. Safety, opportunity. A future that wasn't measured in survival. On Sunday morning, Elena took Sophia to the library as usual. They sat in the children's section. Sophia sprawled on the carpet reading a book about unicorns, while Elena pretended to look at job listings on the computer. Instead, she Googled Dante Moretti. The results were surprisingly sparse. A few photos from charity events, always in the background, never the center of attention. Articles about Moretti Logistics winning contracts with the city. One mention in a Tribune piece about new generation Italian-American business leaders who are reshaping Chicago commerce. Nothing scandalous. Nothing that screamed organized crime, but also nothing that suggested the level of wealth and power Elena had witnessed in that penthouse. Lena? Sophia appeared at her elbow, unicorn book clutched to her chest. Can we get ice cream after? Elena checked her wallet. $11 until her next paycheck. Not today, princess. Maybe next week. Sophia's face fell, but she didn't complain. She never complained. At 7 years old, she'd already learned that money was tight, that treats were rare, that maybe next week usually meant no. Elena looked at her baby sister, too thin, wearing shoes that were getting tight again, clutching a library book because buying books was an impossible luxury, and made her decision. Monday morning at 9 a.m., Elena called the number on Dante's business card. He answered on the first ring. Elena, I want the lawyer to review the contract. The independent one you mentioned. I'll have her contact you within the hour. Anything else? Elena took a breath. What happens to Kozlov? Are you asking as someone who wants details or someone who wants reassurance? Reassurance. He'll never contact you again. Neither will anyone in his organization. The debt will be officially settled. Paid in full. Documented. Legally binding. You'll receive written confirmation. Dante paused. And Elena? He won't be in a position to create new victims. Okay. Okay. You accept the reassurance? Or okay, you're taking the job? Both. Elena's hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. I'm taking the job, but I have conditions. Name them. Sophia never knows about the gray areas. As far as she's concerned, you're just my boss at a shipping company. Agreed. I don't do anything illegal. If you need me to, I walk. No questions asked. Agreed. And if anything happens to me, there's money set aside for Sophia. Enough to get her through college, living expenses, everything. Managed by an independent trustee until she's 25. I'll have my estate lawyer draft that today. Elena closed her eyes. Then yes. I'm saying yes. She heard something that might have been relief in his exhale. Good. Can you start Wednesday? I need to give notice at my jobs. Already handled. I had my assistant call both your employers this morning. 2 weeks severance for both. Paid by me. Listed as a hiring bonus from your new employer. You're free to start immediately. You were that confident I'd say yes? I was that hopeful. His voice softened. You made the right choice, Elena. I hope so. Come to the office tomorrow at 9. I'll show you your workspace and introduce you to the team. Dress casual. You'll have a corporate card for a professional wardrobe by end of week. Elena's head spun. This is happening really fast. That's because you've wasted 18 months trapped in a situation that should never have happened. We're correcting course. Fast is good. After they hung up, Elena sat in her apartment staring at the phone. She'd just agreed to work for a man who'd been surveilling her for weeks. A man who'd casually mentioned removing Kozlov from her life permanently. A man whose world operated on rules she didn't understand. But she'd also just secured Sophia's future, given her sister a chance at the life their parents had dreamed of before everything fell apart. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Sarah Chen, attorney. Mr. Moretti retained me to review your employment contract. Available to meet this afternoon? Elena responded immediately. Yes, thank you. Another text, this one from Dante's number. A photo attachment. She opened it and her breath caught. It was a receipt. Payment confirmation for $20,000 to V. Kozlov Lending Services. Stamped, paid in full. Dated that morning. Below it, a message from Dante. The debt is gone. You're free. See you tomorrow. Elena pressed her hand to her mouth, tears blurring her vision. Free. After 18 months of drowning, someone had pulled her to shore. She just hoped the price of that rescue wouldn't destroy everything she was trying to protect. The offices of Moretti Logistics occupied the top 3 floors of a building in the West Loop, an area that had transformed from meatpacking district to tech hub over the past decade. Elena arrived at 8:45 on Tuesday morning, wearing her best slacks and blouse, feeling like an imposter in a world of polished professionals. The receptionist, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and perfectly styled silver hair, smiled warmly when Elena approached. You must be Elena Vasquez. Mr. Moretti said to send you directly up when you arrived. Top floor, his executive assistant will meet you at the elevator. The elevator ride felt longer than it was. Elena watched. The numbers climb, her stomach churning with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. When the doors opened on the top floor, a woman in her early 30s stood waiting. Elena, I'm Gabriela Torres, Mr. Moretti's executive assistant. Welcome to Moretti Logistics. She extended her hand with professional warmth. Let me show you to your office. Office? Elena had expected a cubicle at best. Mr. Moretti was very specific about your workspace requirements. Gabriella led her down a hallway lined with glass-walled offices. You'll need privacy for the analysis work you'll be doing. They stopped at a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago River. Inside was a sit-stand desk with dual monitors, a comfortable leather chair, and a small meeting table with 4 chairs. This is mine? Elena's voice came out smaller than she intended. It is. IT will be up in about 20 minutes to get you set up with computer access, passwords, all that fun stuff. In the meantime, Mr. Moretti wanted to see you when you arrived. His office is just down the hall. Elena followed Gabriella to a larger corner office at the end of the corridor. Through the glass walls, she could see Dante at his desk, on a phone call. He looked different in this environment, still commanding, but more at ease. This was his kingdom. He saw them approaching and gestured for Elena to enter, wrapping up his call. Understood. Make sure the shipment clears customs by Thursday. Good. He hung up and stood. Elena, how was the meeting with Sarah Chen? Thorough. She said the contract was the most straightforward employment agreement she'd ever reviewed for someone in your position. Elena chose her words carefully, aware of Gabriella's presence. That's because it is exactly what it claims to be. Nothing hidden, nothing sinister. Dante moved around his desk. Gabriella, can you give us a few minutes? Of course. The assistant slipped out, closing the door behind her. The silence that followed felt weighted. This was the first time Elena had been alone with Dante since accepting his offer, and the reality of what she'd agreed to suddenly felt very real. "Sit," Dante said, gesturing to the chairs in front of his desk. "Before we dive into work, we need to discuss Kozlov." Elena's chest tightened. "What about him?" "He accepted the payoff. 20,000, delivered yesterday morning. In exchange, he signed a legally binding document releasing you from all debt obligations, present and future. You're free, Elena. Officially." "Just like that?" "He just agreed?" "He was persuaded." Something dangerous flickered in Dante's eyes. "Let's say I made it very clear that continuing to harass you would be bad for his health and his business operations. Did you hurt him?" "I didn't have to. Sometimes the credible threat of consequences is more effective than the consequences themselves." Dante leaned back against his desk. "But I want to be clear about something. Kozlov's operation was already on borrowed time. He's been operating in territory that belongs to another family, the Calabrese organization. They've been looking for an excuse to shut him down. I simply provided them with information about his activities and suggested that eliminating him would be doing the neighborhood a favor." Elena's blood chilled. "You sicked another crime family on him." "I facilitated a territorial correction that was going to happen eventually. Kozlov was a parasite who preyed on desperate people. The Calabrese family, while ruthless, operates by a code. They don't target civilians without cause. They'll absorb Kozlov's legitimate lending operations and run them properly. The predatory stuff ends." "And Kozlov himself?" Dante held her gaze. "Do you really want to know?" Elena thought about the surveillance photos, about Sophia's school, about 18 months of suffocating fear. "No," she said quietly. "I don't." "Good. Because the answer doesn't matter. What matters is that chapter of your life is closed. Now we focus on the future." Dante pulled out a folder. "Which brings me to why you're really here." He opened the folder to reveal printouts of the spreadsheet he'd shown her at the penthouse. "This is just a sample. The embezzlement I mentioned goes deeper than I initially realized. Someone has been systematically siphoning money from Moretti Logistics for at least 2 years, possibly longer. Small amounts that wouldn't trigger automatic fraud detection, but it adds up. I estimate the total theft at somewhere between $2 and $3 million. Elena studied the pages, her eyes automatically tracking the columns. The pattern she'd spotted before was even more obvious now that she was looking for it. "The spacing anomaly appears in every report," she said, tracing her finger down the page. "But it's not random. Whoever is doing this is marking their false entries visually so they can track them themselves. It's actually smart. If someone audits the math, everything balances. But if you know to look for the visual marker, you can identify every fraudulent transaction," Dante finished. "Exactly. That's what I need you to do. Go through 2 years of financial records and flag every entry that matches this pattern. Once we know the full scope, we can trace the money and identify who's behind it." "Why haven't you just had your accountant do this?" "Because my accountant is one of the suspects." Dante's voice went cold. "I trust exactly 4 people in this organization completely. Gabriella, my head of security Marco, my operations manager Vincent, and my attorney. Everyone else is a potential thief until proven otherwise. You're an outsider with no loyalty to anyone here except me. That makes you the only person I can trust with this." The weight of that trust settled on Elena's shoulders. "What happens when we find out who it is?" "We recover the money and terminate their employment. That's all?" "What else would you like me to do?" Dante's expression was unreadable. "This is a legitimate business, Elena. We handle internal theft the way any company would, through legal channels. I'll press charges. They'll go to jail if the evidence supports it. No bodies in the river, no dramatic confrontations, just boring corporate consequences. Elena relaxed slightly. Okay, where do I start? IT will set you up with access to the financial database. Start with the most recent quarter and work backward. Document everything you find: date, amount, account number, any identifying information. When you've got a comprehensive list, we'll analyze the pattern and narrow down the suspect pool. A knock at the door interrupted them. A young man with thick-framed glasses poked his head in. Mr. Moretti, I'm here to set up Ms. Vasquez. Perfect timing. Elena, this is James from IT. He'll get you operational. If you need anything at all, ask Gabriella. She has standing instructions to make sure you have whatever resources you need. Elena stood, gathering the folder. Thank you for all of this. Thank you for saying yes. Dante's dark eyes held hers for a moment longer than necessary. I have a good feeling about this partnership. Elena spent the rest of the day being absorbed into the machinery of Moretti Logistics. James set up her computer access with what seemed like excessive security measures: biometric login, two-factor authentication, encrypted connection to the financial database. Mr. Moretti's orders, James explained. The data you'll be accessing is highly sensitive. We can't risk any security breaches. By noon, Elena was alone in her office, staring at her dual monitors filled with financial records. The database was enormous, thousands upon thousands of transactions, everything from shipping invoices to payroll records to operational expenses. She started with the most recent quarter, as Dante had suggested. Within the first hour, she'd identified 17 transactions with the telltale spacing anomaly. By the end of the day, she'd flagged 63. Each one was small, anywhere from $3,000 to $12,000, labeled as various operational expenses: equipment maintenance, contractor fees, shipping insurance adjustments. Nothing that would raise red flags individually, but collectively, they represented over $400,000 in just 3 months. Elena created a spreadsheet documenting each fraudulent entry, noting patterns in timing, amount, and categorization. She was so absorbed in the work that she didn't notice the time until Gabriella knocked on her door. Elena, it's 6:30. Most people have headed home. Elena blinked, looking up from her screens. The office beyond her glass walls was dark except for emergency lighting. I didn't realize. I should go. Sophia will be wondering where I am. Before you do, Mr. Moretti wanted me to give you this. Gabriella handed her an envelope. And to remind you that you don't need to work late unless you want to. He values work-life balance. After Gabriella left, Elena opened the envelope. Inside was a corporate credit card in her name and a note in bold handwriting: for professional wardrobe and any other work-related expenses. No limit, no questions. Elena stared at the black card with her name embossed in silver. She'd never had a credit card before, couldn't qualify for one with her credit score destroyed by Kozlov's debt. And now she had one with no limit. She carefully put it in her wallet and shut down her computer. As she was gathering her things, her phone rang. Sophia's number, or rather, Mrs. Chen's phone that Sophia was allowed to use in emergencies. Elena's heart lurched. Sophia, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Her sister's voice was bright with excitement. But Lena, you have to come home right now. There's a surprise. What kind of surprise? I can't tell you. Mrs. Chen said I have to wait until you get here, but it's the best surprise ever? Elena's mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. Had something happened to the apartment? Had Sophia gotten hurt and was trying to downplay it? I'll be there in 20 minutes. Put Mrs. Chen on the phone. A rustling sound, then the older woman's calm voice. Elena, everything is fine. Better than fine. But you should come see for yourself. The bus ride home felt interminable. Elena practically ran the last 2 blocks to her building, taking the stairs 2 at a time. She burst through the apartment door and froze. The space had been transformed. Where there had been a sagging couch from Goodwill, there was now a comfortable-looking sectional in soft gray. The rickety kitchen table had been replaced by a proper dining set. New curtains hung in the windows. A television, an actual flat-screen TV, was mounted on the wall. Sophia bounced up from the new couch, unicorn stuffed animal clutched in her arms. "Do you like it? The nice men said you were getting a promotion and your new boss wanted to make sure we had nice furniture." Elena's throat closed up. She looked at Mrs. Chen, who was smiling knowingly. "They came this afternoon," the older woman said. "Very professional movers. Had paperwork showing this was an employee benefit from Moretti Logistics. I called the number to verify. Spoke to a woman named Gabriella who confirmed everything. They even had me sign for the delivery." Elena pulled out her phone with shaking hands and texted Dante. "What did you do?" His response came immediately. "Provided standard employee relocation assistance. Check your bedroom." Elena walked to the bedroom she shared with Sophia, her sister trailing excitedly behind her. 2 beds now, a full-sized bed for Elena and a twin bed with a unicorn-themed frame for Sophia. New bedding, a small dresser for each of them. The cramped space suddenly felt livable, comfortable. "The best part is in your closet." Sophia tugged her arm. Elena opened the closet door. Hanging inside were at least a dozen professional outfits. Slacks, blouses, blazers, dresses. All in her size. All with the tags still attached, from stores she'd never been able to afford. She pulled out her phone again. "This is too much. It's barely anything. Professional wardrobe is a standard benefit. The furniture is because I won't have my employees living in substandard conditions. Consider it part of your signing package. You can't just redesign someone's life without asking. I can when that person is too proud to accept help any other way." "Are you angry?" Elena looked at Sophia, who was bouncing on her new unicorn bed with pure joy. At the apartment that finally felt like a home instead of a survival bunker. At the closet full of clothes that would let her look like she belonged in that corner office. "No. I'm overwhelmed. Good overwhelmed or bad overwhelmed? I don't know yet. Take the night to process. We'll talk tomorrow if you need to." Elena set down her phone and sat on her new bed. It was firm, supportive, nothing like the mattress on the floor she'd been sleeping on for 18 months. Sophia climbed up beside her, curling into her side. "Is this real, Lena? We get to keep all of this?" "Yes, princess. It's real. Your new boss must be really nice." Elena thought about Dante Moretti, the surveillance, the contract, the careful manipulation of her circumstances until saying yes was the only logical choice. The way he'd eliminated Kozlov from her life with a few phone calls. The penthouse that cost more than most people made in a lifetime. The dark edges of his world that she still didn't fully understand. "He's complicated," Elena said. "But nice?" "But nice," Elena agreed, hoping it was true. Over the next 2 weeks, Elena fell into a rhythm. She'd drop Sophia at school, a better school now, one in a safer neighborhood that Dante had somehow gotten her enrolled in through company connections. Then she'd take the train to the office, spend her day tracking the embezzlement patterns, and return home to the apartment that still didn't quite feel real. The fraudulent transactions formed a clear pattern. They occurred every Wednesday and Friday, always between 2 and 4 p.m. The amounts varied, but the timing was consistent. Whoever was doing this had access to the system during specific windows and was careful to vary their theft to avoid detection. By the end of week 2, Elena had identified over 300 fraudulent transactions totaling nearly $2 million. She'd also narrowed down the pattern to one specific thing. All the false entries were categorized under operational expenses that required approval from department heads, which meant the thief was either a department head or someone who had access to their approval credentials. Elena compiled her findings into a detailed report and requested a meeting with Dante. Gabriella scheduled it for Friday afternoon. When Elena walked into his office at 3 p.m., Dante wasn't alone. Two men sat in the chairs across from his desk. One older, maybe late 50s, with silver hair and reading glasses. The other younger, early 30s, with the build of someone who spent serious time in the gym. Elena, come in. Dante gestured her forward. This is Vincent Calabresi, my operations manager, and Marco Santos, head of security. I've read your preliminary report. I want you to present your findings to them. Elena's stomach flipped. She hadn't expected an audience. But she sat down and opened her laptop, pulling up the spreadsheet she'd created. Over the past 2 years, someone has systematically stolen approximately $2.3 million from Moretti Logistics. She began, her voice steadier than she felt. They've done it through false expense entries that are small enough to avoid triggering fraud detection, but consistent enough to establish a clear pattern. She walked them through her analysis, the visual markers, the timing patterns, the categorization method. Vincent leaned forward, studying the data with sharp eyes. Marco remained impassive, his expression giving nothing away. The entries always occur on Wednesdays and Fridays between 2 and 4 p.m., Elena continued. They're categorized under operational expenses that require department head approval, which suggests the thief either is a department head or has compromised a department head's credentials. How many department heads do we have? Dante asked Vincent. 7. Operations, finance, HR, legal, IT, logistics coordination, and client relations. And all 7 have the authority to approve these types of expenses. Yes. It's part of our decentralized management structure. Gives department heads autonomy to handle their operational budgets without bottlenecking through you for every purchase. Dante turned to Marco. Can you pull access logs for all 7 department heads? I want to know who was logged into the financial system during the time windows Elena identified. Already on it, Marco said, typing something on his phone. Should have the data by end of day. Elena, excellent work. Dante's dark eyes held approval that made warmth spread through her chest. This is exactly what I needed. Take the rest of the day off. You've earned it. I'd rather keep working. I want to cross-reference the transaction amounts with individual department budgets. There might be a pattern in which budgets the money is being pulled from. Vincent raised an eyebrow. She's thorough. I like her. That's why she's here. Dante stood. Vincent, Marco, keep this between us for now. I don't want to spook our thief before we have concrete evidence. After the 2 men left, Elena remained in her chair, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline of the presentation was fading, leaving behind the bone-deep tiredness that came from 2 weeks of intense focus. You did well, Dante said, sitting on the edge of his desk. You weren't nervous at all. I was terrified. It didn't show. You presented like someone who'd been doing this for years. He paused. How are you adjusting? To the job? The new apartment? All of it? Honestly, it still feels surreal. Like I'm going to wake up and find out it was a dream. It's not a dream. This is your life now. Dante's voice softened. You've earned it, Elena. Everything you have, the salary, the apartment, the security, you've earned through your work and your intelligence. Don't let imposter syndrome convince you otherwise. Elena looked up at him. Can I ask you something personal? Yes. Your sister, Isabel. What happened to the people who killed her? Dante's expression went cold. They don't exist anymore. You killed them. I made sure they faced consequences appropriate to their actions. He held her gaze. Does that bother you? It should, but it doesn't. Elena surprised herself with the honesty. Is that bad? That I don't feel horror at the idea of you killing people who deserve it? It makes you human. Vengeance is a natural response to injustice. Most people just don't have the means to actually pursue it. Dante moved closer. But you need to understand something, Elena. The life I live, The choices I make, they come with costs. I've lost people I loved. I've made enemies who would hurt me through anyone I care about. That's why I'm careful about who I let close. Are you warning me away? I'm making sure you understand what proximity to me means. His dark eyes were intense. You work for me. That makes you part of my organization, which means you're under my protection. But if we ever become more than employer and employee, if this ever crosses into personal territory, the stakes get higher. The targets get bigger. Elena's heart hammered. Is that something you want? For this to become personal? Dante studied her for a long moment. Yes, but I won't pursue it unless you want it too. And I won't let you make that choice until you fully understand what it means. Before Elena could respond, her phone rang. Sophia's school. Her blood turned to ice. I need to take this. She answered with shaking hands. Hello? Ms. Vasquez? This is Principal Morrison at Lincoln Elementary. Sophia's fine, but there's been an incident. Can you come to the school? Elena ran. She didn't wait for the elevator, taking the stairs down 10 flights and bursting onto the street. Dante was right behind her, car keys already in hand. My car is faster than a taxi, he said, not making it a question. They reached the school in 12 minutes that felt like 12 hours. Elena rushed through the main entrance, Dante still with her. Principal Morrison met them in the hallway, a middle-aged woman with concerned eyes. Ms. Vasquez, Sophia is fine physically. She's in my office with the counselor, but we had an incident on the playground. What kind of incident? A man approached the fence during recess. He called Sophia by name and tried to get her to come closer. One of our teachers intervened immediately and the man left, but we've already contacted the police and reviewed our security footage. Elena's vision tunneled. What did he look like? Caucasian, late 40s, wearing a dark jacket. The footage is clear. We'll have images for the police report. Can I see my sister? Of course. Principal Morrison led them to her office where Sophia sat on a couch, clutching her unicorn backpack. When she saw Elena, she burst into tears. Elena dropped to her knees, pulling Sophia into her arms. I'm here, baby. You're safe. He knew my name, Lena. He said he had a message for you. Ice flooded Elena's veins. What message? He said to tell you that Vincent Kozlov sends his regards. Behind her, Elena heard Dante's sharp intake of breath, then his voice, cold as death. Marco, get to my location now. Full security detail. Elena looked up at him over Sophia's head. Dante's expression was carved from stone, but his eyes burned with fury. I thought you said it was handled, Elena whispered. It was. Dante's jaw clenched. Which means someone else is using Kozlov's name to send a message. Someone who wants me to know they can reach you and Sophia despite my protection. Who? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. He pulled out his phone, his voice dropping to a lethal calm as he made a call. Vincent, we have a problem. Someone just sent an operative to threaten Sofia Vasquez at her school using Kozlov's name. I need you to find out if Kozlov is alive, dead, or something in between. And I need to know who in the Calabrese organization would have reason to use him as a proxy threat. Elena held Sophia tighter, her mind racing. She'd thought this was over. Thought the nightmare had ended. But she was starting to understand what Dante had tried to warn her about. This wasn't about Kozlov anymore. This was about her proximity to Dante Moretti. Someone was using her to get to him, and Sophia was caught in the crossfire. Dante's security detail arrived within 15 minutes. 3 black SUVs with men who looked like they belonged in a military unit. They swept the school perimeter while Elena and Sophia stayed in the principal's office. The police came next, taking statements and promising to increase patrols in the area. They were professional but useless, Elena could tell. They had no idea what they were really dealing with. Dante handled everything with calm efficiency, making calls and issuing orders while simultaneously keeping a protective eye on Elena and Sophia. When the immediate crisis was contained, he approached Elena. "You're not going back to your apartment tonight. Neither of you. Where are we supposed to go?" "My penthouse. It's the most secure location I have. 24-hour security, biometric access, bulletproof glass. No one gets in without my explicit approval." Elena wanted to argue, wanted to insist they'd be fine, but Sophia was still trembling in her arms, and the memory of that surveillance photo, her baby sister walking out of school with her unicorn backpack, was seared into her brain. "Okay," she whispered. Dante crouched down to Sophia's eye level. "Hey, pequeña, do you remember me?" Sophia nodded, her eyes wide. "I'm your sister's friend, and I have a really big apartment with a whole room just for guests. Would you like to stay there tonight? It has a huge TV and we can order whatever you want for dinner." "Pizza?" Sophia's voice was small. "As much pizza as you can eat. With ice cream after." Sophia looked at Elena for confirmation. Elena nodded, managing a shaky smile. "Okay," Sophia agreed. The drive to Dante's penthouse was tense and silent except for Sophia's occasional questions, which Dante answered with surprising patience. Elena stared out the window, watching the city blur past, wondering how her life had spiraled so far out of control in just 3 weeks. She'd taken the job to escape danger. Instead, she'd walked straight into a different kind of danger, one with deeper roots and higher stakes. When they arrived at the building, Dante's security team performed a sweep before allowing them to enter. The elevator ride up was familiar now, but this time Elena was acutely aware of being a guest, a refugee seeking protection. The penthouse looked different in evening light, the city lights twinkling beyond the massive windows, the space warm despite its modern edges. Dante led them to a guest suite that was bigger than Elena's entire former apartment. "The door locks from the inside," he said. "No one has access except you. There are clothes in the closet that should fit both of you. I had Gabriella stock it earlier today after I heard what happened." "You had her stock it before you knew we'd be here?" "I had her stock it in case you needed to be here. I've learned to plan for contingencies." He paused at the door. "Get Sophia settled. Order whatever you want from the kitchen. There's a tablet on the nightstand connected to the house system. I'll be in my office making calls. When you're ready to talk, I'll be there." After he left, Elena helped Sophia change into pajamas, new ones, soft cotton with little stars that Gabriella had somehow known would be perfect. They ordered pizza, which arrived on real plates delivered by a chef Elena didn't know Dante employed. Sophia ate quietly, the trauma of the afternoon muting her usual chatter. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. "Lena, are we in trouble?" Elena's heart broke. "No, baby. You're not in trouble. You didn't do anything wrong." "Then why did that man come to my school? How did you explain organized crime and territorial disputes to a 7-year-old? "Some people are angry at my boss," Elena said carefully. "They're trying to scare him by scaring the people who work for him. But it's not going to work, because Mr. Moretti is very good at protecting the people he cares about. Like you, like me." "Does he care about me too?" Elena thought about the guest suite stocked with clothes in Sophia's size, the security detail, the way Dante had spoken to her sister with genuine gentleness. "Yes," Elena said. "I think he does." After Sophia fell asleep, Elena made her way to Dante's office. She found him exactly where he said he'd be, sitting at his desk in the dark, illuminated only by his computer screen and the city lights beyond. "Is she asleep?" he asked without turning. "Yes." "Good. Come sit. I have information." Elena settled into the chair across from him. In the low light, Dante looked dangerous, all sharp angles and controlled fury. "Vincent Kozlov is alive," he said. "The Calabresi family did absorb his operation as planned, but they left him breathing as a show of mercy. He's apparently in hiding somewhere in Indiana, no longer a threat." Then who used his name? That's where it gets interesting. Dante turned his monitor to face her. On screen was security footage from Sophia's school, frozen on the face of the man who'd approached the fence. Do you recognize him? Elena studied the image. Caucasian, late 40s, sharp features. Something about his face was familiar, but she couldn't place it. I don't think so. His name is Robert Castellano. He's an enforcer for the Marchetti family, one of the other Italian organizations operating in Chicago. They've been trying to expand their territory into areas I control. This was a message. What kind of message? That they know about you, that they're watching, that they can hurt me through you and Sophia if I don't back down. Dante's voice was flat, emotionless in a way that was more frightening than anger. They used Kozlov's name because they wanted me to think my own cleanup operation was sloppy. Wanted to make me doubt my intelligence network. What are you going to do? Dante looked at her. I'm going to end this. Decisively. The Marchetti family has been a thorn in my side for 18 months. Since they killed Isabel. They're the ones who got her involved with that debt in the first place, used her to try to get leverage over me. When I wouldn't negotiate, they killed her. Elena's blood ran cold. The people who killed your sister are the ones threatening Sophia? Yes. One word, but it contained volumes of controlled rage. Which is why this ends now. Not next week, not next month. Now. How? There's going to be a meeting, tomorrow night, me and the Marchetti leadership. We're going to negotiate. The way he said negotiate made it clear that wasn't what would actually happen. You're going to kill them. I'm going to remove a threat to my organization and to you and Sophia. Dante stood, walking to the window. The Marchetti family operates outside the traditional rules. They target civilians, they deal in human trafficking, they're animals who deserve what's coming. The Commission, the ruling body that governs Chicago's organized crime families, has already sanctioned this action. I'm not starting a war. I'm ending one that's been simmering since Isabel died. Elena joined him at the window, staring out at the glittering city. What happens to us? To Sophia and me? You stay here, under my protection, until this is resolved, and I'm certain there's no residual threat. And then? And then you make a choice. Dante turned to face her. You can go back to your apartment, continue working for me as an employee, maintain professional boundaries. Or you acknowledge what's been building between us since that first night in the diner. You accept that you're not just my employee anymore. That I care about you and Sophia in ways that have nothing to do with business. And you let me protect you the way I should have protected Isabel. Elena's heart hammered. You're asking me to be with you. Officially. I'm asking you to be mine. There's a difference. His dark eyes burned into hers. If you're mine, Elena, I defend you with everything I have. I eliminate threats before they materialize. I give you the life you deserve, you and Sophia both. But it also means you're tied to me, to my world, to the dangers that come with my name. And if I say no, then you're still under my protection until this is resolved. You keep your job if you want it. You go back to your life. I won't hold it against you. But I won't offer again. This is a one-time choice. Say yes now, or we remain employer and employee forever. Elena's mind spun. 3 weeks ago, she'd been drowning in debt, working herself to death, terrified every moment. Now she stood in a penthouse worth millions, wearing designer clothes, with a man who'd killed for her sister offering her. What? Love? Protection? A life she'd never imagined possible? You're asking me to make this decision while Sophia is in danger, while I'm vulnerable. That's not fair. Life isn't fair. But I'm being honest about what I'm offering and what it costs. Dante moved closer. I know it's too soon. I know this is happening too fast. But I also know that I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. And I know that I'll tear this city apart to keep you and Sophia safe, whether you're mine or not. Then why does it matter if I say yes? Because I want you to choose it. Choose me. Not out of fear or desperation, but because you want this life, this future. Because you feel what I feel. Elena's breath caught. And what do you feel? Dante's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. Like I've been waiting for you. Like finding you in that diner was the universe giving me a second chance to protect someone who matters. Like I'd burn the world down before I let anything happen to you. His words should have scared her. Instead, they made her feel safe for the first time since her parents died. I need time, Elena whispered. Tomorrow, after I handle the Marchetti problem. Then you'll have all the time you need to decide. Dante's thumb traced her lower lip. But tonight, just tell me one thing. Do you feel it too? This thing between us? Elena closed her eyes. She thought about the last 3 weeks, the surveillance that should have terrified her but somehow felt like protection. The job that saved her life, the furniture and clothes and security. The way Dante looked at her like she was something precious worth defending. The gentleness he showed Sophia. The fury in his eyes when someone threatened them. Yes, she admitted. I feel it. Then trust me, for one more day. Let me eliminate this threat and prove that I can keep you safe. And if something goes wrong tomorrow, if you don't come back, I'll come back. Absolute certainty. I have too much to lose now. Dante leaned forward, and Elena thought he might kiss her. Instead, he pressed his lips to her forehead, a gesture so tender it made her throat tighten. Go to sleep, Elena. Sophia needs you rested. And tomorrow, this nightmare ends. Elena nodded and walked back to the guest suite on shaking legs. She climbed into bed beside Sophia, listening to her sister's even breathing, and tried to quiet her racing mind. Tomorrow, Dante Moretti would go to war with the family that killed his sister. And Elena had no choice but to wait and pray he came back alive. Because somewhere between that first night in the diner and tonight, she'd fallen for a man who lived in the shadows. A man who'd shown her more kindness than anyone in her life. A man who'd offered her freedom and asked for nothing but her trust. And tomorrow, she'd find out if that trust was justified or if she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.